Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And it looks like we got another all-one genre episode, or at least mostly. This time focusing on pop, or pop adjacent. You'll see when we get to it. Gotta be honest, I'm not sure how many of these I'm gonna keep on doing. I generally like doing with it because you'd think that all one genre would be an easier sell to most audiences, and I look at the view numbers of my all hip hop episode last time and then I realize otherwise. But enough about all that. Let's get on with the show. This is On the Pulse. So before we go any further, if you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be extremely grateful. Again, these sort of compilation episodes don't always get as shared out or as much YouTube traffic in the algorithm, so as much as you could drive that, it would be greatly appreciated. But now on to the matter at hand. There are 8 projects on the docket. Let's get it started with, from Maggie Lindemann, Sucker Punch. So I wanted to give this a proper chance. Maggie Lindemann was discovered and signed from Instagram. She made some generic pop music, but then went indie to go pop punk, even trap metal. So there was an EP last year, now a full-length album that feels like more of that EP, for better and for worse. Yes, Lindemann has more range as a singer and clearly worships Amy Lee, but she doesn't have any of the texture or fiery intensity of her 2000s pop rock idols, and her vocals aren't mixed that well, especially against music that sounds like stock pop punk or goopy mid-2010s Bring Me the Horizon, all of which is overcompressed, underpowered, and lacking in groove or strong lead melodies. And along with some try-hard melodrama and angst in the lyrics that's less edgy, more just kind of generic, ironically it feels like the basic pop flavor of a lot of her idols. I personally found it bland. Maybe for a younger audience who hasn't heard more, they might like it. I'll say that. From GAYLE, A Study of the Human Experience, Volume 2. Alright, round 2, and it looks like even fewer folks seem to care this time, even as GAYLE is apparently building a reputation as being a really solid live act. And with this, well, okay, the central contradiction of the first EP is stark once again. It's back. It's got the ragged swagger to get a little nastier, but still feels over-polished and compromised. It's why blackbear is here. And once again, the writing is the standout. Teenage existential confusion, where nobody's quite sure what level of irony they're even on, but GAYLE is self-aware of that and will drop the deflection to get real, especially on 15, that feels like the raw, young follow-through to Demi Lovato's 29. Not the only parallel to them either. I don't know, it's frustrating. GAYLE has potential, but Atlantic would rather mismanage her for cheap virality than play for something real. I'm not gonna call this EP bad, but it should be better. That bugs me. From Alvvays, Blue Rev. Watching the trajectory of Alvvays has been kind of fascinating. I guess absence makes the heart grow fonder, but over 5 years it's felt like a respected but often overlooked indie pop act is now widely celebrated, with many calling this album their best yet. And I can't agree. The new rhythm section saps the bass lines of their coursing, ragged meat, so the fizzy but kind of blocky synth-inflected production from Sean Everett, it's bigger, it's glossier, but with less low-end foundation, the hooks don't have that same pop, and Molly Rankin's sweeter delivery can struggle to cut through. Now, for lyrics all about emotional revelations as the world turns around you, where like the last 2 albums, the tension really comes from reckoning with your stasis in a lot of prescribed roles and realizing what it'll mean to you to break free, it does kind of make sense that this only works in fractured, poorly sequenced moments, but I'm sorry, it's their weakest to date. It's definitely good, but I'm not gonna call it great. From Poppy, Stagger. So I guess with Poppy, we're just on the wild ride of genre experimentation, but after Flux wound up one of the best pop metal songs I have heard in years, I really wanted to give this return to major labels EP a proper chance. And it's also another swerve. Through 4 songs, 11 minutes, it's probably closest to modern hardcore in the manic, distorted shredding with a little bit too much compression, and some more programmed breakdowns that seem to pull from 2000s indie rock, post-hardcore, even trip-hop. Now, the loose revenge arc of Poppy's writing, from dispassionate rage to fully claiming her own shape-shifting agency, it might be familiar, but it is well executed. What I think keeps this from greatness is a lot of the production, which feels really inconsistent in the mix dynamics and the grooves across these 4 tracks, and that leaves the sound feeling kind of underdeveloped. So, yeah, cool teaser, but that's about it. Take it or leave it. From Tegan And Sara, Crybaby. So, I did not expect this swerve, but I guess when you're indie for the first time in decades, you can afford to do something wild. So, alright, remember Tegan And Sara's electronic experiments in the early 2000s? So, drive the tempos close to dance punk with some superorganism-esque synth textures and hyperpop-esque vocal modulations, push the manic Technicolor side into the stratosphere, but you don't sacrifice your pop compositional instincts, your well-balanced production, the vocal harmonies, some frustrated angst, and a genuinely terrific final third of the project, and you got this. Now, like all of Tegan And Sara's electronic flourishes, and me with hyperpop in general, some of the kookier tones do not quite work, and there's this odd lingering tension between the arrested adolescent melodrama and then contemplating the next steps of adulthood. Really a continuum of queer time. But honestly, it is pretty great for it. This album's getting slept on. You should hear it. Check it out. From Tove Lo, Dirt Femme. I don't know why I had any optimism for Tove Lo, but okay, she's independent now with a new album. It could be good. And you know what? For what it's worth, it might be an improvement. Now, it's a given that the production has issues. I blame her engineering team, and especially the struts, for leaving in a lot of ugly, tinny high frequencies around her vocals, just like on the last album. But you know, pulsating, retro synth pop, leaning a little on house, has a bit more of an identity. It can fit her raw, pitchy delivery. But while it is more tuneful, Tove Lo's lyrical appeal came with reckless, sexually charged abandon. And while Marriage has brought some maturity and welcome introspection, it's kind of dampened that individual flair, that narrative ambition. It just feels more basic. So with lingering issues and less personality, I'm sorry, tuneful improvements are just not enough to save it. I'd call it decent at best. From Carly Rae Jepsen, The Loneliest Time. So here's a frustrating conundrum. I've been on record saying that Carly Rae Jepsen could think about diversifying her sound and some subject matter, and when she actually does, it doesn't click as well as it should, and it's kind of exasperating to pin down why. Yeah, some synth choices are questionable, but dabbling in light funk, 80s soft rock, disco, and 90s R&B should be a natural fit for her, but it's also a step away from her best ethereal ballads and her exultant bangers, and in particular her synthetic vocal mix doesn't always fit with these new sounds. At some points the album kind of reminds me of S Club 7, and not always in the good way. Because yes, while dejected, yearning loneliness is the most persistent emotion in a string of hookup misfires, I don't know, the songs when it clicks feel kinda patchy. Let me stress overall, the album is good, it's worth hearing, but it's also inconsistent, and the magic just isn't quite there for me. Just kinda hit and miss. From Charlie Puth, Charlie. It's going under the radar that Charlie Puth has had multiple charting hits this year, something of a comeback, both that felt kind of gimmicky, but were enough to get me to check this out. And that was a mistake, because this album is not good at all. I mean, you expect the painfully cheap, tinny production that sounds antiseptic and canned all around these rejected cuts from the 1975. How does the percussion still sound this stiff? But after the smoother R&B of voice notes, why go for the most unnecessary auto-tune warble I have heard in recent memory, to say nothing of the chunky and mostly embarrassing attempts at pop rock? Speaking of embarrassing, the lyrics. Charlie Puth has always been basic, but he's had flashes of moody swagger that's now gone for petty melodrama to reverse engineer a TikTok hit that's at best forgettable, but at worst amateurish, cloying, or just inexplicable. I mean, this is the Kidz Bop version of itself. It's not good. Skip it. So yeah, once again, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be extremely grateful. We are so close to hitting 43,000 subscribers. It looks like it's starting to pick up a little bit after a couple big solo reviews. That's always nice to see. But hey, if you guys want to go take a look at that, it'd be greatly appreciated. Beyond that though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. But if you want to support the channel beyond my merch, link down in the description, or you want to get albums onto my schedule, which is already overloaded, or you want to argue with me on Discord, or hell, again, just support the channel, link to my Patreon is right over there. You don't feel obligated to do so, it's tough times, I understand, but the option is available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching On the Pulse on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.